The autumn wind swept across the Wyoming plains as rancher Jacob Turner rode toward the old cabin everyone in town had forgotten. The weathered building had stood empty for nearly 20 years. Its roof sagged, its windows were cracked, and weeds had swallowed the front porch. At the county auction, no one wanted the property. When the bidding ended, Jacob quietly offered just 12 cents. The auctioneer laughed, struck the hammer, and handed him the deed. "You just bought yourself a pile of rotten wood," one rancher joked. Jacob simply smiled. Sometimes forgotten places still have value. The next morning, carrying a lantern and a toolbox, Jacob unlocked the cabin door. It creaked open with a long groan. Dust danced through the sunlight, and old furniture lay covered in faded sheets. Then he heard it. A soft movement came from the back room. Jacob slowly stepped forward. "Who's there?" he called. No answer. He pushed the bedroom door open and froze. Curled beside the fireplace was a young Apache woman, no older than 20. Her dark hair fell over her shoulders, and she held a small leather pouch tightly against her chest. Her clothes were worn, and she looked exhausted, but her eyes were sharp with fear. She reached for a small knife. "Please," Jacob said gently, raising his empty hands. "I'm not here to hurt you." For several silent moments, neither of them moved. Finally, she lowered the knife. "My name is Ayanna," she whispered. Jacob noticed she had barely enough strength to stand. He offered her fresh water and bread from his saddlebag. At first she refused, but hunger finally won. She accepted the food with quiet gratitude. Over the next few days, Jacob repaired the broken roof while Ayanna slowly regained her strength. She spoke little, but she carefully helped clean the cabin and gathered firewood every evening. One night, sitting beside the fire, Jacob finally asked, "Why were you hiding here?" Ayanna looked into the flames. "My grandfather once lived on this land before settlers arrived. He told me this cabin protected something important." She opened the worn leather pouch. Inside was an old map and several handwritten papers. "My grandfather said they proved this valley belonged to both our people and the first ranchers together." Jacob studied the faded documents. They were decades old. If genuine, they could settle a land dispute that had divided local families for years. The following week, word spread that Jacob had found old records. Not everyone welcomed the discovery. A wealthy cattle baron named Victor Collins rode to the cabin with 3 hired men. "I'll buy those papers," Collins said coldly. "They're not for sale," Jacob replied. Collins smiled. "Everyone has a price." Jacob shook his head. Collins' smile disappeared. "Then you'll regret saying no." That night someone cut Jacob's fence and released half his cattle. Another evening, the cabin windows were smashed by unknown riders. Jacob knew exactly who was responsible, but he had no proof. Instead of giving up, he traveled with Ayanna to the county courthouse. The elderly judge carefully examined every document. After several days, historians confirmed the papers were authentic. They revealed that Jacob's grandfather and Ayanna's grandfather had once signed an agreement promising to share grazing land peacefully before dishonest businessmen destroyed the partnership. The truth shocked the entire county. Victor Collins had built his fortune by hiding those records for years. Soon the sheriff arrested Collins for fraud and illegal land claims. The stolen property was returned to several families, including members of Ayanna's tribe. For the first time in many years, neighbors who had distrusted one another gathered together around the same table. The old cabin became more than an abandoned building. Jacob repaired every board, planted flowers outside, and built a larger porch overlooking the valley. Children from nearby ranches often visited to hear Ayanna tell stories about Apache traditions and the history of the mountains. She spoke not with anger, but with hope. "Our past teaches us," she would say. "But our future is built by the choices we make today." Months passed. The lonely cabin slowly became the heart of the community. Travelers stopped for water, neighbors shared meals, and families celebrated harvest festivals together. One quiet evening, Jacob stood on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. "It's hard to believe I bought this place for 12 cents, he laughed. Ayanna smiled warmly. "You didn't buy a cabin." "What did I buy?" "A second chance." Jacob looked across the peaceful valley where cattle grazed freely and children played without fear. He realized she was right. The old cabin had never been worthless. It had simply been waiting for someone willing to look beyond broken walls and forgotten stories. Years later, people still traveled across Wyoming to see the famous 12-cent cabin. Some came expecting an old building. Instead, they found a place where kindness had defeated greed, truth had overcome lies, and 2 strangers from different worlds had changed an entire community forever. And every visitor left with the same lesson. Sometimes the greatest treasures are not hidden beneath the ground, they are found inside the people we choose to help.